What's up, everyone, and welcome to Up and Now. I'm your host, Portia. Sources are warning of a dangerous situation if the Rafah border crossing in Egypt does not open. Let me break this down. Fuel is expensive. People in desperate need of clean water and electricity. This conflict, this occupation is continuing to take innocent lives on both sides. Hiba Tiba, country director in the West Bank in Gaza for the humanitarian group CARE, spoke to us on the growing humanitarian crisis. Take a listen.
Unfortunately, the tension is building up, as you know, in Gaza, in West Bank, and even in the region. Over the last days, we have seen the higher escalation in the number of violence incidents that took place all over West Bank. You also, I'm sure that you heard about the news in the north, in Tulkarem, where are constant military operations since yesterday. In Ramallah, I live in a place that is very close to entrance of the city. Almost every day we have military actions coming inside the city, finishing or finalizing targeted actions, and they leave. So this is building up the tension. Today is Friday, and there are lots of calling for demonstrations, and unfortunately, no one is, as I always say, prepared for war. And what we are seeing on the ground, like civilians and actors, we started to see also in the city lots of commodities, services that are going lower and lower, especially when it comes to isolated communities that are located in Area C.
Now, yesterday I told you that pro-Palestine protests have erupted across the Middle East and around the world after a hospital explosion killed at least 100 people in the Gaza Strip. Hamas initially blamed Israel. Israel initially blamed Hamas. Initial reports from the U.S. intelligence community released Wednesday say that Israel was not responsible for the airstrike. They believe it may have been caused by an errant rocket or missile launched from the Palestine Islamic Jihad. In Jordan, police clashed with demonstrators near the Israel embassy in Amman. I wanted to remind you of that as we move into this next part. Take a listen.
So I will tell you what I heard already today and yesterday and the day before from my colleagues who had also, like many people in Gaza, evacuate from the north to the south. Unfortunately, most of the hospitals, shelters, the schools of UN and also their clinics, the shelters that are used, the houses, they operate a majority of them and almost all the time on the generators because of unstable electricity. The fuel is needed for all of that, for the generators to operate. We are very concerned with the testimonies that we are seeing from people. I know that you have heard of the water crisis and that people are now drinking contaminated water or unclean water. And this is basically because most of the water that comes to Gaza, the fresh water that is normally used for drinking, is pumped through treatment units that are operating using fuel, and then we need the fuel to transport this fresh water to the population. And again, all of that is getting very, very complicated. Even us as a humanitarian organization, with all our networks and connections, we were able to secure water. But the most important thing, the most biggest obstacle that we faced was how to transport it.
Okay, on to some entertainment news. Lupita is heartbroken, y'all. Yes, the Oscar award-winning actress posted a very lengthy post detailing her feelings on Instagram Thursday. It went something like this: there are much more important things going on in the world right now. There is, Lupita, and my thoughts are with those who are deeply suffering. But at this moment, it is necessary for me to share a personal truth and publicly disassociate myself from someone I can no longer trust. Then she said, it got a little bit more poetic, y'all. I am tempted to run into the shadows and hide, only to return to the light when I have regained my strength enough for me to say, whatever my life is better this way. Girl, listen, we've all been there. The shit hurts. You win in the end. Trust me. She never named who she was talking about, but word on the internet streets is that it was the television and I believe sports host that she posted a picture with or went public with back in 2022. The Advocate Channel Stephen Walker, hey Stephen, spoke with Joy Davenport, a documentary filmmaker that is part of the Queer Cuts Film Festival. And yesterday we learned more about Joy. Today, we get to learn more about the themes and takeaways in the film New Hope Rondo. And what I love is that this film explores gentrification and colonization. And Joy says something that I think everyone should hear about those two distinct things. Take a listen.
And from your point of view today, how does the New Hope community embrace and make the queer community feel safe there?
Something that was interesting to discover is that New Hope was so queer for so long that it's just kind of baked into the bricks there. So there's only, I think, one gay club left. But I had several people there who have been there for decades say it's not needed for there to be like a special place for gay people. You can just go walk on the sidewalk holding your partner's hand. And that's just absolutely normal. So gay people can just be wherever. I guess that's probably the most profound statement of acceptance and of kind of the culture of queerness and New Hope is that it's just normal. It's very just day to day. This is what it's like.
No, that sounds amazing. Acceptance, making the queer community feel like they don't need to separate. It's beautiful. And how does the New Hope break the stereotypes of bigoted small towns?
Well, just the fact of open queer people, but I can even I come from the South. I've lived in smaller areas as well as larger areas, and there's always a queer community in your little rural places. They just have to generally have their little spot. They have to have their club or their hangout or their house parties. And I suppose how New Hope breaks the mold is that it's just been that way for so long that it's just normalized. It's to the point that there's nothing strange about it at all.
And what is the significance of New Hope to you as a filmmaker and a queer person?
Well, I'm a historian too, especially when it comes to the films I like to make. And I've often been frustrated that queer history is very difficult to unearth because it's always called something else, the trope of, close friends or roommates or that sort of thing. So to have a place where that queer history is documented and acknowledged, and that you can keep digging back further than I'm used to being able to find evidence in the record of queerness, that's intoxicating as a historical filmmaker to have the records and the archives to play with. That's something that I've definitely enjoyed delving into.
And your film, is there anything you'd like us to know or you hope the audiences will take away from it?
Well, I think there's two things. There's the historical lesson of the cyclical nature of this, that colonization, that gentrification is just colonization by another name in many ways. It's a cycle that started and never stopped. And we just started calling it different things as different groups of people were displaced. So to start in the present and go back in time and see that gear turning over and over again and just being relabeled every century or so. I hope that people have an awareness of the long history of this happening. And just artistically, I want to play with that concept. That's why I called it a rondo, because like many concertos or symphonies with movements, you have 2 or 3 movements that play on themes, and then those themes get repeated in the end in the rondo section. So that's something that structurally I'm playing with in the film, and I hope that the rhyming nature of history comes through both in the content and in the artistry of it.
Well, it all sounds very fascinating. I cannot wait to see it. So Joy, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Listen, I love that last little nugget from Joy. Gentrification and colonization is merely, the same thing. Listen, I'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend, girls.